Hi everyone, Bindu here. Welcome to the very first YouTube hop from Crafty Meraki in celebration of the Meraki Hugs release. Today's video is extremely special for me because we're joined by Laura Basson on this YouTube hop. Yep, the Laura Basson. And I'm showing you this card because my card today is inspired by this card that Laura made, I think about a year ago. Here's the card that we're going to make today, inspired by Laura Basson's card that I just shared. So we're going to make the card using this stamp set called Sweet Friendship, which was just released as part of the Meraki Hugs release this month. We're going to use some of the floral elements in this stamp set. We're also going to use this Craft Around slimline die that was released as part of the Craftober release last October. We're going to use the coordinating dies for the Sweet Friendship stamp set to cut out the wreath. I am going to start off by adding decofoil to this stamped image using a tutorial actually that I followed that was shared by Jennifer McGuire. I will link to the tutorial in the description box below, but essentially I just followed her tutorial and I added the rainbow decofoil onto the stamped image using heat embossing. I then die cut the wreath using the coordinating dies, and while I was rainbow foiling, I kind of went crazy. I also rainbow foiled the matching smaller flower on the inside of the wreath as well as the sentiment that's on the inside of the wreath. I didn't use those on the card today, but while I was foiling, I just went ahead and did it, and I will use them on a future card. Next up, I am using these two medium-sized flowers, the large flower and then the smallest flower. I am using all of those to heat emboss onto 5 different color cardstocks. You know, when Laura Basson is involved, you've got to have the rainbow. You've got to have die cutting, you've got to have rainbows. So here I am heat embossing 5 different colors of cardstock using Brutus Monroe Alabaster Fine White Embossing Powder. So speaking of rainbows and Laura Basson, I cannot tell you how excited I am today that I'm sharing the YouTube hop with Laura Basson. I mean, Laura is the reason why I started card making. Laura had a class on Crafty way back when, and I actually took that class on Crafty. It was a rainbow card making class, surprise, with Laura Basson, and I was so blown away. That was my very first time watching any card making tutorial, and I had to do that. I had to make those cards. So anyway, back to the card for a second. I just die cut 2 panels using the Craft Around slimline die, and I stacked them up with glue and just mounted that entire panel onto a slimline card base. Next, I am actually going to do something very, very unimaginable for me. I mean, it's Laura Basson, inspired by her, so you gotta have die cuts and you have to cut them up. You have to have symmetry, you have to have geometric shapes, you know. So I chose this Craft Around slimline die very, very carefully because it has circles. I chose the wreath, it has circles. So I had to cut this wreath up Yep, I cut it up. You saw me hesitate there for a second, but I cut it up. Every time Laura did this in her videos, I would be like, I don't know if I would do that. But this is inspired by Laura, so I had to cut it up. And this is how I'm going to mount it. You see me trying to find the positioning here, but essentially I'm cutting the wreath and I'm going to position the two half circles just like that in this position. So back to Laura. You know, Laura always says, dimension is life. You gotta have dimension. So you see, I have my foam tape ready to go. So anyway, all I'm doing is I'm simply mounting the half cut wreath onto the card panel using foam tape. Can you tell that I am starstruck by Laura? I mean, this is truly a dream come true for me because, like I said, I started making cards because of Laura. I have watched probably all of her videos at least once. So, for me to be actually working with her, being on the same YouTube hop with her, it is just unimaginable. And I am super excited to be here, as you can tell from my voice. So back to the card for a minute. On this card, on this wreath that I actually cut out, you can see it sometimes, but this rainbow foil adds an amazing shimmer, shine, rainbow look to it that you can only see when the light hits at a certain angle. I'm just blown away by how cool this wreath looks in real life. I hope you are able to see at least some of that on camera, but it is just amazingly cool in real life. This card is a very first for me in many ways. I mean, I don't know if I've ever made a white on white card with that rainbow foiling just being the focus, if you will. So this is very out of character for me. My cards are always full of color, full of rainbow colors, if you will. I guess there are rainbow colors even on this card, but essentially the white on white is very new to me, very unlike me. So I hope I did justice to it. I hope I did Laura proud with this geometric wreath card that I cut up. And I had to add pops of color. You'll see that I had all of these die cuts that I tried to figure out placement, and then I finally ended up adding to the card front. So you can see on the top right corner here, I heat embossed a bunch of these little flowers from the cardstocks. I die cut them all. But in the end, I didn't end up using all of them. I only used a handful. And I'm just going to save these for another card for a different day. But all I'm doing here is I mounted the wreath and I'm going to attach these flowers on top of the wreath. Once I added both the wreath with the foam, I flipped the card over and just trimmed off the excess parts of the wreath. Next, I stamped a sentiment that says "the best is yet to come" from the Magnificent Blooms stamp set, which was also part of the Meraki Hugs release. I just wanted the contrast of this black strip against the white card. So I stamped it on a piece of white cardstock, just that sentiment. And once again, I am foam mounting that sentiment right in the middle of this card across the two half wreaths. So I'm actually trying to line up the sentiment based on the grid lines on my work surface here. I'm using a cutting mat and I am trying to line up the sentiment using the grid lines in the back so that I can get it straight on the card. Once I added the sentiments, I figured that I would just add a handful of flowers. I didn't want to add too many. I wanted to keep this card very, very simple. And I also wanted the foiling to show through. So I just added, like I said, one of the medium flowers, and then on top of that, I just added one of the smaller flowers in a contrasting color. Again, I had to mount the medium-sized flower onto the card base using foam tape, like you're seeing me doing here. So I've been talking about the YouTube hop, but let me give you some information. So follow all of the stops on this YouTube hop, leave a comment on every stop along the way, and we will pick a random winner on the 7th of February, and that winner will get a $50 gift certificate to the Crafty Meraki store. So remember, more comments you leave, the more chances you have of winning that gift certificate. So like I said, on my card, all I'm doing is the slightly bigger flower is foam mounted onto the card base, and the smaller flower is just glued on top of this medium-sized flower. And I'm just going to add these 3 flowers and the contrasting flowers on top, and that's it. This card is finished. I hope you find loads of inspiration today from my card as well as from all the other cards on the YouTube hop. And I hope you will try out these cards for yourself. Don't forget to leave comments on every stop to win the gift certificate from Crafty Meraki store. The next stop on today's hop is Corin Wiskman. So please click the link in the description box below and follow along to her channel. And you can catch another awesome tutorial with Corin. Here's a look at the final finished card that we made together. How amazing is this? I'll be back soon with another card tutorial, but until then, stay happy, stay crafty. Bye!